one of the most legendary rock bands of all time, a group that redefined rock and pop, selling over 120 million records worldwide. But behind the success, the fame, and the music was a story of love, heartbreak, and betrayal. At the center of it all was Lindsey Buckingham, the musical genius who helped shape the band's signature sound. His intricate guitar work, visionary production, and dynamic songwriting played a crucial role in their rise to superstardom. But brilliance came with tension. The relationships within Fleetwood Mac were anything but stable. Passionate romances turned into bitter rivalries. Personal struggles spilled directly into the music. And after decades of highs and lows, one final decision shattered everything. In 2018, Lindsey Buckingham was abruptly fired from the band he helped define. What led to his downfall? And was it really the end? This is the untold story of Lindsey Buckingham and Fleetwood Mac. It all began in the late 1960s in Northern California. Two young musicians, Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, first crossed paths. Though they attended the same high school, their connection didn't form immediately. Lindsey was already immersed in music, a quiet but intense guitarist who practiced relentlessly. Stevie, by contrast, was free-spirited, drawn to poetry and melody, but still searching for her voice. Their worlds collided at a casual gathering. Lindsey picked up a guitar and began to play. Stevie instinctively harmonized. For a moment, their voices locked together in perfect chemistry. Neither of them could ignore it. That chemistry deepened when Lindsey joined a local band called Fritz. They were making noise in the Bay Area music scene, blending rock with psychedelic influences. One day, their drummer suggested something unusual: bring Stevie in as a singer. The band agreed, and the impact was immediate. Her voice added a new dimension. Soon, Fritz was opening for legends like Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and Santana. For a moment, it seemed like they were on their way. But despite the big shows, Fritz couldn't break through. Labels weren't interested. The scene was changing. By the early 70s, the band dissolved. That left Lindsey and Stevie at a crossroads. Years of dedication and nothing to show for it. Instead of giving up, they doubled down. They left behind their roots and moved to Los Angeles, determined to make it as a duo. This was the beginning of Buckingham Nicks. In 1973, they scraped together enough money to record an album. It was raw, emotional, and showcased their undeniable chemistry. Lindsey's intricate guitar, Stevie's haunting voice. But despite its artistry, the album flopped. No label support, no radio play, and no money. They were broke, rejected, and on the verge of quitting. Their personal relationship, once purely musical, had turned romantic. But the weight of failure tested even that bond. Lindsey took session work just to keep them afloat. Stevie waited tables and cleaned houses. They were young, in love, and chasing a dream. But the industry was merciless. Still, they refused to quit. And then, fate intervened. At Sound City Studios, where Buckingham Nicks had recorded their album, destiny was about to unfold. Mick Fleetwood, drummer and founding member of Fleetwood Mac, happened to be scouting for a new guitarist. His band was in turmoil yet again. Guitarist Bob Welch had just quit. As Fleetwood walked the halls of the studio, he overheard something that stopped him cold. Lindsey Buckingham's guitar. Intricate, rhythmic, unlike anything he'd ever heard. "Who is that?" he asked the engineers. When he learned it was Lindsey Buckingham, Fleetwood knew he had found the spark the band needed. He offered Lindsey the role of lead guitarist. But Lindsey wasn't interested in joining alone. He had built his career with Stevie, and he wasn't about to abandon her. His answer was firm. "If you want me, you take Stevie too." It was a bold demand. Fleetwood Mac had never had a female lead singer. Bringing in two outsiders would reshape the band completely. Christine McVie, Fleetwood's longtime bandmate and songwriter, became the deciding voice. She recognized Stevie's potential and pushed to bring her in. And just like that, a new lineup was born. Mick Fleetwood, John McVie, Christine McVie, Lindsey Buckingham, and Stevie Nicks. Few could have predicted what would come next. In 1975, the new Fleetwood Mac released their self-titled album. Almost overnight, everything changed. Lindsey's guitar gave the band a sharper, modern edge. Stevie's mystical vocals added a haunting new layer. The chemistry was undeniable. The record was loaded with hits, including Rhiannon, Stevie's hypnotic ode to a Welsh witch, and Landslide, a tender ballad about change and uncertainty. For the first time, Fleetwood Mac weren't just a respected blues rock band. They were mainstream stars. The album sold millions, topped the charts, and launched them into superstardom. But success came at a cost. The same passion that fueled their music also fueled their conflicts. As the band reached the peak of fame, cracks in their relationships began to widen. By 1976, Fleetwood Mac was on top of the world, but behind the scenes they were falling apart. Lindsey and Stevie, once inseparable, were barely speaking outside the studio. John and Christine McVie's marriage was ending. Even Mick Fleetwood's home life was collapsing. The music was soaring, the band was fracturing, and the real drama was only beginning. The studio became both a battleground and a sanctuary. The only way Fleetwood Mac knew how to deal with their pain was to put it into the music. And out of heartbreak, betrayal, and raw emotion came one of the greatest albums of all time. Rumors. Each song was a message wrapped in melody. Lindsey poured his anger into Go Your Own Way, a blistering anthem aimed directly at Stevie. The lyrics were biting, the guitars aggressive. Stevie fired back with Dreams, an ethereal ballad that told her side of the story. Wistful, reflective, searching for peace. Christine McVie, meanwhile, found light in the darkness with Don't Stop, her optimistic reminder that tomorrow could be better than today. The process, however, was brutal. Fueled by alcohol, heartbreak, and mountains of cocaine, arguments were constant. Some nights they couldn't even be in the same room, recording parts separately just to keep the album moving. And yet, from chaos came brilliance. In 1977, Rumors was released. It wasn't just a record, it was a confession. A glimpse into the private wars being fought inside Fleetwood Mac. The world couldn't get enough. It sold over 40 million copies, becoming one of the best-selling albums in history. But success came at a cost. The wounds ran deep, and the cracks were only widening. By 1979, the band faced an impossible question. How do you follow up Rumors? While fans and labels wanted more of the same, Lindsey Buckingham had other ideas. He pushed the band into uncharted territory with Tusk, a sprawling, experimental album that blended distorted guitars, unconventional rhythms, and layered harmonies. It was bold, it was different, and it divided everyone. Critics were split, sales fell short of Rumors, and the record label was furious. Inside the band, resentment grew. Stevie and Christine preferred their classic songwriting, while Lindsey's relentless perfectionism pushed them to exhaustion. Meanwhile, his relationship with Stevie, already strained, turned toxic. Arguments spilled from the studio onto the stage. The tension finally exploded in an infamous band meeting where their fight turned physical. The passion that had once fueled their greatest songs now threatened to tear the band apart. Somehow the music continued, but Fleetwood Mac was running on fumes. By the mid-1980s, solo projects had pulled the members in different directions. When they regrouped to record Tango in the Night, there was doubt about whether they could recapture the magic. What emerged was a masterpiece, lush, modern, and filled with timeless hits. Big Love, Little Lies, Seven Wonders, Everywhere. Lindsey once again drove the production, obsessing over every detail. The result was brilliant, but the process nearly destroyed them. Tensions between him and the rest of the band were at an all-time high. Fleetwood Mac had created yet another classic, but behind the flawless sound, the fractures were now impossible to ignore. By the time Fleetwood Mac began recording Tango in the Night, the cracks were undeniable. Stevie Nicks, fresh off a solo tour and battling addiction, was barely present. Christine McVie, despite delivering some of the album's biggest hits, was growing weary of the constant conflicts. And Lindsey Buckingham, drained by years of sacrifice, was on the edge of walking away. The label expected another massive tour, but Lindsey was done with the cycle of record, tour, fight, repeat. At a heated band meeting in August 1987, he made his decision. He wasn't going. He couldn't do it anymore. The reaction was explosive. Stevie, still carrying years of resentment, lashed out. Voices rose, tempers flared, and the confrontation turned physical. Just like that, Lindsey Buckingham, the man who had shaped their sound, written their biggest hits, and pushed them to greatness, was out of Fleetwood Mac. Fans were stunned. The band scrambled to fill the void, bringing in Billy Burnett and Rick Vito to replace him. The tour went on, but the energy was never the same. Something vital had been lost. Lindsey threw himself into his solo career, releasing Out of the Cradle in 1992. It was a showcase of his distinctive guitar style and fearless production, proving his genius extended beyond Fleetwood Mac. Critics loved it, but commercially it could never match the heights of Rumors. Still, for Lindsey, it was freedom, music without compromise. Meanwhile, Fleetwood Mac carried on, recording albums and touring, but the absence was undeniable. The band had always thrived on tension, on the dangerous chemistry between its members. Without Lindsey, a crucial piece of that spark was gone. For years, it seemed his chapter with the band had ended. But in the unpredictable world of rock, nothing is ever truly over. By the mid-90s, the bitterness had begun to fade. Whispers of a reunion surfaced. And then, in 1997, the impossible happened. Fleetwood Mac's classic lineup, Lindsey, Stevie, Christine, John, and Mick, stepped on stage together again. What was supposed to be a one-off celebration became something much bigger. The magic was still there, the chemistry electric. They reunited for a full tour, captured in the dance, a live album and concert film that reignited the band's career. Songs like The Chain, Go Your Own Way, and Landslide once again brought audiences to their feet. For a moment, it felt like the wounds had healed. But behind the scenes, the same old tensions lingered. Stevie and Lindsey's history was too tangled to ever truly resolve. The band stayed together, but it was fragile, held more by nostalgia and business than by peace. For 2 more decades, Fleetwood Mac continued in shifting lineups. Christine McVie stepped away for a time, then returned. But the rift between Stevie and Lindsey never closed. The breaking point came in 2018. As the band prepared for another major tour, an ultimatum shattered everything. Stevie reportedly told the group, "Lindsey goes, or I go." And just like that, he was out again. This time, for good. Mick Fleetwood later said the decision was about keeping the band stable. For Lindsey, it was a devastating betrayal. After decades of sacrifice, of battles fought, and music made, he never imagined they would cut him loose. But this time, there would be no reconciliation. No dramatic reunion. No last-minute miracle. Fleetwood Mac moved on without him, but fans knew the truth. The band would never be the same. Looking back, Lindsey Buckingham's journey with Fleetwood Mac is a story of brilliance and heartbreak. He helped shape one of the most influential bands in rock history, creating songs that still resonate across generations. His perfectionism, his guitar work, his production, all of it defined their greatest years.